My name is Cassie Summers. Welcome to the Curious Universe podcast. Welcome everyone to the Curious Universe. I have with me the gorgeous, wonderful, phenomenal Becky Vannes. Thank you so much for being here.
You. Wow.
Oh, I've actually I miss you. It's been a while since I've seen you, so it's so nice to be here with you. Yeah. So we're going to talk about something that I'm already so grateful for. This all kind of spawned from an audio that you had sent to a group of CFs, and I was like, oh my gosh, I need to talk more about this with you, and it just touched me so much. So would you just start to give people, you went nighttime scuba diving. Can you just, give this story, and then we'll go into some deeper questions. But so everyone kind of knows.
Well, so I think there's a little bit piece two in the beginning to really talk about too before the audio came. Yeah. So I was doing my advanced scuba diving course. Which, what does that mean? You are able to go 100 feet when you do advanced. So there's a few things that, you're able to do with this course. And you have to do a couple specialty dives. And I picked night diving as one. And then there was another one, but I can't remember what the other one was. The night diving was the piece that really got me, though. So that's what I do remember, luckily. And before I went to do my night dive, I asked, this group that we're in, I was like, can you guys contribute, to me? I just was a little out of sorts, a bit, just a tad bit. And then I can do this. I'm usually always pretty motivated, I guess I would say, and cheerful as much as, I ask to be that. So, as much as I can. So the reason why I'm even bringing that up a bit is because, when you meet people and you see their presence on social media, or maybe you're meeting me on here and you're like, wow, she's whatever you decide. Yeah. What ended up happening is I went and did the night dive, and I will talk about that. But everyone was like, great job. Wow, you're so amazing. You're so brave. You're so blah, blah, blah. And after my dive, I was just like, it was intense, and I said, you know what? And to myself, I said, I really want to be vulnerable. And I really want to, say what I was going through at that moment. Because, I guess by this, perception of what I did, everyone's like, you're a rock star. You're so amazing that you did this. And I was like, I didn't feel amazing. And I didn't feel like a rock star at that moment. And I was like, you know what? Thank you. And sometimes people look like they do amazing things, which it was. I'm not negating, what I did. But there are those times that people don't always get to see that we go through.
You're talking about the Instagram life, right? I'm going to post the best. I might have had a shitty day, but I had 10 seconds of okay. I'm going to post. Yeah. And create this image that people follow. And I think that's part of what, contributed so much to us was your willingness to be like, actually, I'm going to be a little vulnerable right now. Yeah.
And, it really it was one of those moments that I had in my life that really has changed it in a different direction too. It was very pivotal, it sort of, changed. And here we go. So, I did the night dive, and here I did it in a place that's by me called the Hudson Grotto. And the Hudson Grotto is like a natural man-made cavern, very deep, murky. It was a Saturday. People were scuba diving all day. So when I got there, it was completely dark, very murky. You couldn't see at all. And I had no idea. I didn't know it was going to be like that. So here I am going down there with my scuba, instructor and another person, which adds a different level because now I don't want to ruin his dive, or I don't want to, so I'm like, I can do this, push through, I can do it, and what ends up happening is I get down there and I see nothing. Like I barely can see my scuba diver instructor's fins because they're a color. So I'm like, just follow the fins, just follow the fins. And what I ended up, what I really wanted to like kind of, I guess, talk about like with the audio is that I realized, being down there and like, 60 feet, maybe we were 100 feet, I don't know, in the dark. And when you're scuba diving, you lose a lot of your normal senses, right? Like, so now you can't hear, you can't speak to say, hey, I'm having a hard time. Can you help me? Or, you can't ask a question. So you can't speak. You don't really hear. And I could barely see.
And they can't see you too.
Probably not. I mean, so what ended up coming up for me was like when I was younger and having anxiety attacks, and I was like ready. My brain was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? You're breathing underwater. You can't see. And I started to really go into panic. And so obviously I have some really great tools. I do not go into, full-blown panic attacks anymore, but I do remember what it's like. And who wants to have a panic attack underneath the water, where you can't see, and two, because like scuba diving, like when you're dive a certain level, you can't just shoot up. Now, technically, listen, if your life's in danger, you can like go up, like, but you have to like go take like stops and like decompress. It's very interesting. So you have all of this going on, and as I'm getting through it, and, I said, okay, first of all, I really started using a tool of like box breathing. And so it was bringing me more to presence instead of being in my head, because I can't speak, I really can't see, and I'm in the dark. And it really brought me to a place of being alone with my brain, like in a box.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like, I am sitting here alone with all of my fears in this box. And I knew, I had some choices to make, because I'm really good at getting by. Like, I can do this, just a few more. We're almost done. What time is it? We're almost done. And so I had a lot of pivotal things that came up for me of where, obviously, fear really isn't real. And if you allow it to take over, it can be super dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Physically, because your body now physically is going to react, and, that's pretty dangerous. And I don't want to live that way, and I'm not enjoying what I'm doing. I'm scared. I'm not enjoying, I'm just like getting by. And
can you also, you were saying like, and all the thoughts of, because they do this for safety, but everything that could go wrong.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you do that for safety. So when you train and all of these things, you're trained in how to react in a situation. So all of these things are going through your mind, because that's what you got to talk about over and over and over, of like, if this is an emergency, this is what you do. And, and so thank you for that. So I realized, how much, even in life, we're taught the worst case scenario and how to handle it, supposedly. Right. But I'm telling you, when you're down there and you're afraid, I couldn't remember one thing. And I'm like, you prepare for all these horrible things, but when you actually require like the training, like I was in fear. So I couldn't recall one thing at all. So, and I'm like, how is that even helpful? And so I really had to step into a place of like, what if I didn't even have to know what they taught me and how to fix things? What if I was willing to trust me and my body? What if my body knew exactly what it required to live and survive if I needed it? So, and that was a huge really thing of like, that I learned down there, but I also learned that I do up here on the surface. Of like your brain, when you're in this now, you might not know it as much because you're not down underneath the water, can't see, can't, you're breathing through a tube because you're up here and you're used to it. But, when we're stuck in our brain in the horrendous things that, we can create.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, anywhere, I'm doing this in my life. Like that just doesn't work for me anymore. Like enough. Because you don't need to teach me what the worst case scenario is, because when they happen anyways, you don't even know what to do with them. So why prepare? Why prepare? That's probably the right word, is like, because everything goes out the door anyways.
Yeah.
And I was like, you really have to trust you and rely on you, not an outside source. And trust my body, like trust my body that it actually is going to be taking care of me. And I knew that everything was good. Like I had air, like I actually was okay, and so I just was telling myself that. And then, obviously then, I stopped panicking as much and I was okay. But then I was, the little piece that I was like, well, I can just get by. I can do this. And
I'm okay. I can get through it. Yeah.
I can get through it. And then, the next day when I was being vulnerable, I was really looking at all these pieces, because guess what? I did get through it. I got through it. And then everybody was telling me how amazing I was. And wow, you're such a badass. Like, you're so amazing. And here I'm like, I don't feel amazing, and if they only knew like what a fraud I am, because I don't feel amazing and I didn't do great and I just barely got by. And maybe that's not quite true, but that's really what I was, being in that moment,
Yeah.
And so for me, after I was like really processing it all, and I was just like, wherever I'm just getting by, like wherever I'm choosing things that actually don't work for me, but I know I can do it. And then I can rush through it to get to the next thing. Right. And then not want to do that, but I committed to it. And then, just get by through that instead of being in total presence of like every moment, and I was just like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not getting just by. I want to thrive. I want to thrive with my life. I want to thrive with my body in every moment and everything that I'm doing. And I had to then dive again the next day. And I already had like all of that come up. So like, that's in your brain. You're like, oh, you sure you want to do this? Like, remember what happened? Yeah. And I was like, no, I'm doing this. And I am going to enjoy every single freaking minute. And the next thing I did, and I slowed down and made sure I was aware of, because like, how cool is it to be underwater? You're floating. Yeah. Like you don't have like all the noise and, the things distracting you. It's like actually can be total presence and like beautifulness. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to like relax and look around and like look at the bubbles and like play and have added the more play and not, I'm just going to get by. And I had so much fun. That's so beautiful. And in the second time, it almost has the sense of like the water embracing you, like it's got you. And so I even wonder how much more we receive from that space than if I just get by, okay, we got 10 minutes left. I can just get by. Like for me, I shut down my receiving because well, look at the energy of that. You're just zipping, just like, you're not even like, it's really like, I can just get by. I can do this. I can do this. And then like, no, I'm going to enjoy every freaking moment. And then the universe is like, oh, the water starts contributing to you, or, you don't have to be underwater to have that, that nurturing. And, when you trust, it's like, I got you. Then you can slow down enough to, feel, like you're not alone. Because I don't know about you, but I think a lot of people like fear and anxiety and those things that come up, you feel really isolated and alone and scared. And when you're willing to be total presence, you realize that you're never alone. And the universe, like a whole, like every molecular structure of the universe is like there to contribute to you and have your back. It's the total opposite.
Yeah. So let's explore a little bit with, let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, well, I lived my whole life in this, just getting through. And whether it's like get through to the weekend and then they feel that little bit of safety, they can relax. Or some people it's like get through till the next month or get through, like, Yeah. And maybe they don't know how to even have that presence. Like, obviously you made a choice. You were like, I'm not having this anymore. And that was really like very palpable, I think, for us, like the audience to perceive that. What else could you offer for people to take that moment, to have that presence, to flip the switch, or switch out of, I'm going to get through this, to like, I can enjoy every moment of this?
Well, I think for me is acknowledgement. Acknowledge what's happening,
Ooh.
where you're at. So like acknowledgement is like the rocket fuel to creation. Because if you can acknowledge something, you're aware of it and you can change it.
Wow.
You can't change something if you're not like, because what is it? Like, what is this exactly? And so for me, I really got super present with what happened? Like, what was and I was like, ooh, I was like in a little dark box with my fears. And was any of it real? No. And, and then that's when I came to like, wow, because I was taught everything, like the worst case scenarios. And then I was like, wow, how much in life are we taught? Everything of the worst case scenario. Does anybody let me tell you about the best case scenario today. Your day is going to be fucking fabulous. You're going to win the lottery. Like, this is possible. No. So acknowledge what's happening. Take a moment and just be like, what is happening here? Because once you acknowledge something, you can change it.
Yeah.
Or you can just be like, okay, this is shitty. And like, I am going to be shitty for a minute. Like, that's okay too. Right.
Yeah.
It's like, none of it's really, like right or wrong. It's just what works for you and what works for you in the moment. Then you can have a different choice. You can't choose something if you're not willing to like look at what is happening, like the direction of like, like this is what's happening here. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. I think you pointed out something so valuable there. It's like being in the box of fear and none of it was real. So when you ask that question of like, what is this actually? Not what have I decided this is? What am I afraid that this is? But what is this actually? And that space of acknowledgement. So I want to bring in, like, for example, it keeps screaming at me, people in like their box of fear around money, especially right now, And so, so they have, what are the worst case scenarios? I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose my marriage. My kids and I are going to be on the street. Like, we're preparing. All this energy going into the worst case scenarios, and we're just going to get by. If I could just get by and avoid the worst case scenario, then we can survive this.
Yeah. Instead of thrive.
Yeah.
Well, and then so like, okay, that sounds great. You acknowledge it, but like, now what?
Yeah.
And so I think a little bit of peace for me is like with the acknowledgement of that money piece, where it's like, okay, I know I am the source. I have like acknowledged a lot of the things that I'm good at. So when you're able to like know what you're good at, now you already are like your 401k, like you are your savings account. Because, it's easy to say that that's not true and real, like, because there's money in the world. But, people that are, live in a certain way, because it's actually, this is not just for people that are poor. Like, there's people that are rich that go through this as well. Because like people that make a lot of money just make a lot of more numbers. And a lot of them usually just spend more numbers. So they're really not any more richer or have more money than you do. Right. So it's not really a class of like, well, yeah, you're rich, you can say that. But, I've personally been broke and I've made lots of money. And what is the difference? Nothing. When the numbers that are there of how much I spend. So I never really have been rich, until I was willing to actually look at, acknowledge what's happening and how can I change this, And so for me, what I implemented in my life is that, okay, I had one business and it would have ups and downs, rich, broke. If you don't have money right now, you might be like, well, yeah, that's where I'm at in the situation. Because there's ebbs and flows to everything. Christmas time, everyone is like, I'm broke.
Yeah.
Surprise every Christmas that happens. But, surprise, I'm panicking, I'm broke. and then you prepare for the worst case scenario. But what I made the demand of, okay, like I'm not doing that anymore. I started out with 2 businesses. So I'm always going to have something that's bringing me in money. And did that completely change it? No, but it started the change.
Yeah.
Right. It started of like, what else can I add? So, like I made the demand of like, I'm not going to be that unkind to myself anymore because it's abuse. And just like fear is, just like, like the panic attacks, it's physical abuse. You're abusing you. It's an unkindness. It's uncaring. It's not necessary, but we do it, and we do it to ourselves with money. Okay, acknowledge that. I am abusing myself. I'd rather do all these things than have a savings that would actually have my back, where if something did happen, now I have money, and so I just started, saying, I'm not going to abuse myself with anything anymore. I'm going to have money. And then, this is probably a whole nother topic on another podcast of like creation. But I would love to say to anybody listening to this is that you are your 401k. You are your product. It's you. You're epic. And there's something unique about you that nobody else can do. And what is it?
I love that. Okay, let's look again like this. So that was so beautiful. And the abuse piece is so strong, like where we abuse ourselves. And you even bringing up as fear as a way to abuse yourself, so true. But you had those 2 different dives, and one was abusive in a way, like there was moments where you're, and then the exact same thing.
Yeah. The next day.
Yeah, the next day. And there was all that enjoyment and pleasure. And that's really, it's a shift in your point of view, right?
It most definitely was a shift in my point of view. It was what I was, willing to choose in that moment. And it wasn't always easy because anybody knows that you've ever had fear or something, or like had a really bad situation. When you go right back into it, you're like, you like duplicate it.
Yeah.
You just, it's not the same situation. It's a different day, different temperature, different time, but and you duplicate it and you bring it into this moment. Like, this is how this will be. And so anytime something came up, I was like, I'm thriving. I am no longer surviving. I'm thriving. And I was like to myself, nope.
You kept choosing, like throughout the whole time, you're like, I'm thriving. I'm choosing thriving.
Yeah. And for me, I also love to say, like, I trick myself. I take baby steps, just one more step. You don't have to look at the future. I don't have to see anything else. Just one more step. And then I can navigate from there. And I'm like, okay, one more step. And then I get there and then I'm like, see, this is fun. I'm having fun. Look at the bubbles. Look at the water. Let me look around me. Because when you look around and you expand out, now you have a different view, a different lens. Things are like, you see me, like a different way to contribute. When you're in a box, you're like this.
Wow.
Right. Like nobody can even almost get to you sometimes. You're like, hey, get present. Because you're just like, what? You don't have to bend in the water to do that. Like, I've been like that. My friend was like, what's on your mind? The other day, I was just like, huh? It was in my head. I was in the box. So if you find yourself doing that, like for me, I have a tool where like sometimes I'll rub my fingers and then I'll just like feel like the texture and the different things. And it brings me back to like my body and like to the moment. Because now I'm okay. I know for me. So, I mean, you might have something different, but it's one of the tools that I use.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I've heard people like even like rubbing your thighs.
Rub your legs.
Yeah. I'm here.
And then you can say, oh, I want, I wonder what I see. Like, what's changing here? What I'm underwater, and I just kept making that demand every step to enjoy every moment. None of us know how much time we have on Earth. Yeah. And if we're going to, die tomorrow or in 10 minutes, like, is this how I want to be? Worried? No. Yeah. And actually with the money piece too, I recently did an interview and they asked me something and I got the aha moment, like if you could change anything, in your past or anything, what would it be? And I would be like, I'd go back and tell myself not to worry because everything always worked out. I've never been homeless, like all the times that I've worried about money. And I think that's a parent thing too. If you're on here and you're a parent, maybe you have a dog, maybe, you have some responsibility of some sort. You're like, I have to do this, or they're going to suffer, or, what am I going to do with my kids? How am I going to give them anything? Or, so there are all these things that go on, but, everything always works out. It's always had, if you can take a moment and look back where you're like really stressed,
yeah,
something greater was always waiting for me. And if you're not looking around, sometimes you might miss it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that tool. I just want to bring it up again for those listening of like, okay, like that breaking it into smaller steps too, because that's not getting through it. That's like, okay, just like one more step. How much can I enjoy this one? Just this one
well, because it might change. You can change. You don't have to be stuck. Like, okay, maybe this something is that you need to be aware of here. Like maybe you do need to get out, but when you take that next step, then you're able to like navigate. And you're like, oh, this is fun. Maybe, like, yay. Or, I think a lot of times we look at something and we're so aware that you actually are already like 10 years ahead of yourself. Of like, and then you're like, So, I've been married to my husband for 28 years. We've been together for 30 years. And I always laugh because I was like, I tricked myself into it, like baby steps. Nobody's like, Becky, you're getting married. Do you take this man for 50 years? I've been like, what? Do I have to commit to that?
So death do us part.
But, every day is wonderful. And I'm so in love with him. And I'm so grateful for him. And I'm so lucky. And I wonder, just using some of those tools of like, you just have to worry about that one little step, not 50 years or, all of the other things. So,
yeah, which gets you into, I think, I love engaging with futures and possibilities, but worrying about the future or the worst case scenario for me creates that box and it creates that get through. And like you said, like looking down like this, I exactly do that same thing. If I'm getting through anything, whether it's the day, the week, a moment, and it's so contracted, like energetically, I'm like this small, it's almost like you're trying to go inside yourself to be as small as possible, although that's going to keep you safe.
Yeah.
But when you open up and you explain that so well, you opened up in the water, you opened up to the joy, it changed everything.
Yeah.
So as we're kind of wrapping up, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I wonder, how much we're asking for these magic and miracles to show up. And they're just like, put your chin up, you'd see me, like look around, I'm right here, put your chin up, and so the universe is like, dude, you got 100 million in your bank account up here, you've asked for it, you got it, but you're like, where's my money? Help. And and I'm being silly too, and then not being silly, but in the moment, there's so much beauty as well, and relaxing in to even the stressful times, because you can actually still have ease through these stressful, big times, and still have ease.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. And you actually just kind of showed me an energy of like, so there's like, oh my God, I got through that. Like it was so hard and it sucked. And like, look at me, because I got through that. Like I survived.
Yeah, and let me take a photo and post it on social media.
Yeah.
And like, everyone thinks I'm amazing. And I'm over here like, and I'm not knocking, because I love social media and I love pictures. So I'm not knocking anybody that's, doing it. Good for you, because it's wonderful, because people think you're amazing.
Yeah. But then there's also the energy of like, you know what? That was hard. I came back. I thrived through that. I was present through that. And yeah, there's so much like vibrancy in that and the difference of that, and I think so. I definitely grew up where surviving was something to be proud of. And I don't see a lot of people like proud of thrival. And I really love that you've shared that energy here for all of us. Like, what if we could be like, yeah, I fucking like, I thrived through that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm just loving this conversation. I definitely have to come on and we'll talk about money stuff more. But as we wrap this up, is there anything else like that you'd want to share or speak to, or even just acknowledge about like, you are badass, and that was in like the whole piece of it like was so beautiful and so generous of you to share with the world. Is there anything else that you want to leave people with or share?
Well, I would probably say, like the acknowledgement piece too is really key of like wherever you're at, whatever you're doing. And if you can acknowledge something and you can change it, and then when you can change something and you see that that's possible for you, then that is where, you are thriving. And then what's next? Like what is your, like my level of thriving might be different than yours, and yours might be, it's completely different than the next person. But like what if, we were like, wow, like instead of like worst case scenario, like what if you woke up today and was just like, wow, I wonder how much magic, can show up today. Or, wow, I hope I don't win the lottery. I mean, I don't even know. I actually can't even give you examples because I never do it. You know what I mean? So I'm acknowledging something here today. If you find something to, even give us an example to like the best case scenario constantly that you're using, let us know.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, or even like what's the greatest possible scenario that could show up today? And just
what is the greatest possible
universe deliver it?
Universe show me.
Universe show me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's so many gems in like every moment of this podcast that you gifted.
Thank you for asking me to acknowledge this. You're such an inspiration and a gift to more possibilities in life. That's magic.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yay.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
That's right. Have fun.
Thank you for exploring the curious universe with me. Your curiosity matters. And what if together we could create a greater, more curious world?